You finally hit 3 months of expenses saved. The next week, your car makes a noise, or your laptop dies, or a limited opportunity appears that you simply cannot miss. You tell yourself, this is what emergency funds are for. Emergencies happen. That's life. You'll rebuild it. 3 months later, you've saved again, hit the target, and suddenly, the fridge breaks, or a friend's destination wedding, or you realize you've been borrowing from yourself for 6 months and never paid it back. Here's the pattern that might feel uncomfortably familiar. Every time your savings reach a certain threshold, something requires them, almost as if the money itself becomes a magnet for necessity, as if financial security is allergic to your bank account. You've been telling yourself you're unlucky, that life is expensive, that you'll finally relax when you have a bigger cushion. But that's the lie, the comfortable one, because the truth is harder to swallow. You're not spending your emergency fund because emergencies keep happening. You're spending it because having money feels more dangerous than having none. In the next 18 minutes, you will understand exactly why your nervous system treats financial security as a threat, and, more importantly, how to break the cycle of saving and sabotaging before you ever touch the money again. But first, let me tell you about someone who sat exactly where you are now. Elena was 34, project manager at a tech firm. On paper, she was the success story her immigrant parents dreamed of. 6-figure salary, retirement account, the vocabulary of someone who has their finances together. But Elena had a secret. Every time her emergency fund reached $10,000, she found a reason to need it. Not frivolities, never that. Always reasonable, responsible expenses. The dental work she'd postponed, the car maintenance that couldn't wait, the family member who needed help. I just have bad luck with timing, she told me. As soon as I get ahead, life happens. But here's what caught my attention. When her fund dropped below $3,000, the emergencies stopped. The car ran fine. The teeth didn't hurt. The family managed. It was as if her financial anxiety required a specific balance enough to feel virtuous for saving, never enough to feel safe. I just need to hit 6 figures, she said once. Then I'll finally feel secure. I wrote that down because I'd heard it before, from people making $40,000, from people making $400,000. The number changes. The feeling never arrives. In 2018, researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, published a study that should have changed how we think about financial behavior. They found that people with a history of financial instability don't just fear poverty, they fear stability itself. The mechanism is called status quo bias reversal. When your nervous system has adapted to scarcity, abundance registers as threat. Predictable struggle feels safer than unpredictable security. Your brain would rather the devil it knows. Think about that. Your emergency fund isn't disappearing because of bad luck. It's disappearing because having a cushion feels like standing on a cliff with no guardrail. The fall from 3 months saved to zero is terrifying. The fall from 0 to 0 is just Tuesday. Here's how childhood becomes your financial prison. If you grew up watching money disappear, if you learned that savings were temporary, that abundance was always followed by loss, that hoping for security invited disappointment, you didn't just learn to save. You learned to spend before the spending was done to you. Elena's father lost his job every 2 years, like clockwork. The pattern was so reliable, it became family weather. Sunny days meant save quickly. Clouds meant spend before the storm took it. By 34, Elena was creating her own storms to maintain the familiar climate. This is where most people get it wrong. They think the solution is more willpower, tighter budgets, better emergency fund rules. But willpower is exactly what created the problem. The more you restrict, the more you rebel. The more you monitor, the more you feel the anxiety that spending temporarily cures. Why doesn't pay yourself first fix this? Why do automatic transfers become automatic justifications for overspending elsewhere? Because this isn't a math problem, it's an identity problem. You don't have a savings account, you have a security account, and your nervous system has decided you don't deserve security. The counterintuitive truth is this: you don't touch your emergency fund because you lack discipline. You touch it because having money contradicts who you believe you are. All that advice about separate accounts, about naming your savings, about visualizing your goals, it becomes another performance, another way to feel virtuous without feeling safe. Another layer of financial wellness that masks the wound underneath. Why don't budgeting apps work for people like Elena? Why does tracking every dollar become a compulsion that ends in a shame spiral? Because visibility without safety feels like surveillance. And you're not managing money, you're managing the anxiety of having it. And when the anxiety peaks, you spend to return to the familiar pressure of not enough. Here's what happens when financial security triggers your threat response. You save. You hit a milestone. Your nervous system notices. Before you can enjoy the cushion, your brain launches its defense protocol. This isn't real. This won't last. Spend it now while you still can. Not consciously. Never that. Consciously, you believe you want security, but your body learned that security is the moment before the crash. That hope is the most dangerous feeling of all. But here's the revelation that changes everything. The goal isn't to eliminate the urge to spend your savings. That urge is information. The goal is to recognize it as a trauma response, not a financial necessity. To sit with the discomfort of having money until your nervous system learns that this time the other shoe doesn't drop. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming someone who can tolerate good things without destroying them. Let me give you 3 specific techniques that rewire this pattern without requiring you to just save more. The most useless advice ever given. First, the 4-8-hour rule. When you feel the urge to spend from your emergency fund for any reason, you will wait exactly 48 hours before acting. Not to talk yourself out of it. Not to find alternatives. Just to observe what happens in your body during that pause. Most people discover something remarkable. The emergency loses its urgency. The fridge noise quiets. The opportunity reveals its pressure tactics. The dental work can actually be scheduled next month. But more importantly, you will notice what the waiting feels like. The anxiety, the restlessness, the specific flavor of fear that having unspent money creates. That's the target, not the spending. The feeling you're spending to avoid. Second, the identity audit. Once a week, you will write 1 sentence completing this prompt. People with money are. Don't censor it. Write the first thought. Greedy, selfish, lonely, targets, not people like me. Most people discover they've been carrying a secret moral code. Suffering is virtuous. Comfort is dangerous. Abundance corrupts. You can't save consistently while believing that having savings makes you bad. The math doesn't work because the identity won't allow it. You won't change these beliefs by arguing with them. You'll change them by noticing how expensive they are. Every time you touch your emergency fund, ask, which belief am I proving true right now? Third, the painful pause. You will schedule 5 minutes of doing absolutely nothing every time you hit a savings milestone. No celebration, no planning, just sitting with the number in your account, feeling whatever arises. Here's what usually arises: panic, the urge to immediately allocate the money somewhere, the intrusive thought of what could go wrong. That's your nervous system testing the new terrain. Don't move, don't fix, just witness. You might think this sounds good in theory, but your emergencies are real. Your car actually needs repair. Your family actually needs help. This isn't imaginary scarcity, it's your life. I understand that resistance, but consider this. How many of last year's emergencies are you still paying for? How many solutions created new problems? How many times did spending the fund feel like relief in the moment and regret 2 weeks later? Your emergencies are real. Your interpretation of them is learned. The 4-8 hour rule won't fix your car, but it will reveal which repairs are truly urgent and which are convenient excuses to return to zero. And if you only did this for 30 days, something peculiar happens. You start catching yourself mid-justification. You notice the moment anxiety transforms into necessity. And in that noticing, you have a choice you never had before. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. It's payday. Elena sees her emergency fund hit $12,000 for the first time. Her phone buzzes. A text from her sister. The landlord is raising rent. I'm freaking out. Old pattern activates immediately. I have enough to help. That's what family does. I'll rebuild by summer. But she's practiced a 4-8 hour rule. She waits. She notices the tightness in her chest, the guilt of not immediately offering, the strange grief of having something someone else lacks. She sits with it. She writes her sentence. People with money are supposed to rescue others or they're selfish. She feels the weight of that belief. She doesn't argue with it. She just sees it. 48 hours later, she calls her sister. I can't cover the increase, but I can help you look at your budget. I found a tool that helped me stop touching my savings. Her sister is disappointed. Elena feels that disappointment in her body. She doesn't fix it with money. She lets it be true that she has something and didn't give it away. 3 months later, her fund is still intact. Her sister found a roommate. The relationship changed not because Elena rescued her, but because Elena stayed present instead of paying to disappear. But wait, there's a trap here you must avoid. The most common implementation mistake is turning these techniques into new forms of self-punishment. I've seen people use the 4-8 hour rule to beat themselves up for 48 hours. The identity audit becomes obsessive self-analysis that replaces actual saving. The painful pause becomes a new ritual of suffering. If you catch yourself performing financial wellness, stop. Seriously. Spend the money if you must. Break the rule. The goal isn't perfect behavior. It's honest observation of imperfect behavior. I want you to remember a specific moment now. Think of the last time you felt genuinely proud of your savings balance. Not the hitting of a goal, not the posting about it. The quiet moment of seeing the number and feeling, what? Safety? Possibility? Or did you immediately think of what could take it away? Now contrast that with how you usually feel when your account approaches zero. The strange relief. The familiar pressure. The story that makes sense. I'm broke because life is hard. Feel the difference in your body right now. One requires tolerating uncertainty. The other is certain suffering. You have been choosing the certainty because it once kept you safe. But you're not in that house anymore. You're not that child watching money disappear. You're an adult who can afford to find out what happens when you don't spend your savings the moment they appear. A year from now, you won't remember the techniques I gave you today. You'll forget the 4-8, hour rule, and the identity audit. But if you remember one sentence, remember this. You don't touch your emergency fund because you're bad with money. You touch it because you're terrified of discovering who you are when you're not struggling. The question isn't whether you can save more. It's whether you're willing to find out that you were always safe enough to let the money stay. Here's what I want to know. What did you learn about money when you were 7 years old, and have you spent every year since proving it true? If this question found a tender spot, that's the work. That's the recognition that your financial behavior isn't a failure of discipline. It's a loyalty to survival strategies that outlived their usefulness. If you felt that recognition, the like button becomes something different than approval. It becomes an acknowledgement, a small act of presence in an economy designed to keep you spending. That's what you're giving when you press it. Not validation, witness. And if you want to continue this conversation, next week we're exploring why you undercharge for your work even when you know you're worth more. The psychology of pricing yourself, the hidden cost of being reasonable, and why your salary history feels like a life sentence. If that sounds like someone you know, maybe you subscribe now. Not for more content, for the next piece of your financial identity you're ready to reclaim. I'll see you there.